All right, howdy. So this video is going to be for my Mac users for our installs. We're going to be installing Python, VS Code, Anaconda, and Git. I already have those things installed on here, but I'm going to show you where to do those and a little bit about how to do that. Fortunately for you, the Mac installs are substantially easier than the Windows ones. So this should be fairly straightforward. We'll be able to get you all set up quickly. So I am kind of winging this a little bit. I've done this a few times, but I haven't necessarily taught a video through it. But we should be all good to go. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open Google Chrome throughout this course. That is the preferred browser. You can do web development on other ones, but I really highly recommend using Chrome because that's going to be all of the plugins and extensions and developer tools that we're going to be using for this course are going to be Chrome specific. And then once you're done with the course, if you want to find another browser and do it your own way, my mentor uses stuff besides Chrome. You're totally allowed to, but for the course, highly recommend using Chrome while we figure out kind of the concepts of theory, and then you can move that over to other things as you please. So I recommend using Chrome. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to install Python. And so we're going to actually go to python.org. You can also just Google download Python and it'll be right here. I'm actually probably going to be upgrading my Python today, but that should be fine. For my Mac users, actually one other thing too to point out is we have a nice little terminal here. Delightful, thank you, cool. So Macs come with Python on it, but it's the wrong version. It's actually Python 2. So I suspect that one day there will be a world in which they install the brand newest, nicest version of Python. We don't live in that world yet. But what we can do is we can just say Python -- version. And so here we are with Python 2.7. Now, this is a little bit troublesome for us because, again, Python 2 is old. It's not really used anymore. There are some legacy code bases that still use Python 2, but we are going to be using Python 3 for our course. So what we're going to do is actually, and you should get that same thing back on your Macs. You should get back Python -- version. A nice thing about Macs is they come prepackaged with a bunch of beautiful things for developers, and it works really nicely the first time for most things. But what we want is Python 3 -- version. And I get 3.9. You probably won't unless you've already installed it. And so that's what we're going to do today is make sure that you can see Python 3.9 on your terminal. So over here, we're going to Python. We're going to go to downloads. Download for Mac OS, Python 3.10. We just click on downloads just so we can see the page. Again, there's other versions that you could. You can see, obviously, here, version 2.7 is at end of life. It means they are not updating it any longer. They said, that's it. Too bad. We are not fixing any of the issues with this anymore. We've just moved to a whole new one. And so obviously Python versions 3.7 through 3.9, these are all the versions that they're running. They're just making sure that it's secure and they're not fixing issues with it outside of security problems. So it works perfectly fine, but occasionally people find ways of abusing it, and so they will change those. And then 3.10, they're still doing bug fix stuff on it. You can see here that they are still going to be working on that until 2026. 3.7 will be working through 2023, so we're not going to use 3.7. We're going to go with 3.10. This should be totally fine at this point. It will work with everything we're doing in this program, and again, they are obviously still working on it and updating it and fixing it and messing around with it, so we're just going to roll with that. So download Python 3.10. We'll get this nice little package file. Pop that open. That will open on my other screen, so I'm going to move it over here so we can see. All right, this package will install 3.10. That's great. This is all fine. And so on Apple Silicon, that's what I'm running on. That's just a problem. But don't worry about that, even if you are working with one of the M1 Macs, because obviously I'm on an M1 and it works just fine. That's fine. I agree. I think that's fine. Yeah. Cool. I put this thing in here. Woo! It's a little install. It'll take a moment. My computer's pretty fast, so it won't take very long. Great. So here's Python 3.10. So it's still thinking. That's just telling me where it's installing it. That's all fine. If it takes a whole lot longer, I'm going to have to start telling stories. My Windows videos, I started telling a lot of stories. It took a very long time. All right, move to trash. It's all good. And now I should probably have to kill this. Close out my terminal. Quit terminal. And the reason why I have to do that is because terminal will continue operating on whatever like the last like when you open the terminal, it will keep working with whatever was installed when you opened it. And so sometimes you have to restart the terminal for it to like realize that there's new things installed. So I'm just going to do terminal again. By the way, that's a command spacebar if you're new to that one. The way that I'm opening this, you could also theoretically go here and probably just type terminal. There you go. And that's how you would open that. But I'm just using the command spacebar just as a shortcut, and that way I can open, Chrome, right? If I want to do that, or I can do Minecraft, yeah, whatever. Okay, whatever. There's all kinds of things you can search for and install, or you can even search how to bake a potato, and it pulls up stuff for that too. So again, that's just cool thing. All right, great. So we're gonna do Python. Ooh, I have to spell it right. Python 3 -- version now, and now I'm at 3.10. So that installed correctly, it updated. That's all great. So that's cool. One other thing that you might want to look into, and this is not required. You don't have to, but it is a nifty tool for Mac specifically. Is Homebrew. So we're gonna go here. Homebrew. It's this brew.sh thing. What does it do? And so you can install this pretty easily. You just copy this and put it in your terminal. And then you can just use brew install and put stuff in here, and it will automatically install things and do all of this whole process for you with just one line on the command line. So for example, I already have it installed, so you would do that install little copy paste thing. This one right here, you copy that. But now that I have brew installed, I can just do brew install Python 3. We'll see if that gets the right thing. So it'll update brew, and then it will pull in Python. And again, I already have the right version of Python, but it's still going to try and figure it out. See what to do. So there it is. You can see Python 3.10 that it's installing. And any second now it will finish. But now it's got all the cool tools and everything else that I would possibly need with Python. But it's really nifty because you can just write that one line and it automatically takes care of the whole thing for you. Down the road, you'll see the value of this if you're on a Mac. So that is cool. We'll let that go for just a moment. Again, it's doing the same thing we just did. Often brew is just a much easier way of doing this than other ways. So now it's upgrading Python. The other thing is that we have these things called path environment variables. So basically where on your computer it stashes this stuff can vary, and brew makes sure that you can access these packages where you need them from. And so these would both be valid ways of installing Python 3. We're gonna let that finish up. We're gonna move on to, what else did I have? VS Code. Yeah, VS Code. All right, cool. So, yay, code.visualstudio.com, delightful. And so you can download Mac Universal, and that's all good. It really is pretty great. It's owned by Microsoft, one of the handful of Microsoft products that I'm a big fan of. VS Code and GitHub are two that we're going to be using that are Microsoft products that are very, very good. But yeah, so you should be able to download that, Mac OS, the stable one, just do that one. We'll see what happens if I install it anyways. Actually, I'm probably not going to install it the whole way, but I already have it installed. I don't need to reinstall it, so that's all good. But you would click on this and go through the steps just like normal. There shouldn't be anything particularly ornate about it. And you'd be able to get that going, but this is the website here. Oh, you are still... Oh, it's because you're still messing with QEMU and other stuff that I asked you to do yesterday. Yeah. So, little story time. I'm trying to write my own operating system, and I was trying to actually run Windows on my Mac without using a dual boot, some other nonsense. There we go. Cool. So now I've got Python 3.10 installed. and that's all groovy. But yeah, that QEMU stuff is a emulator for other operating systems, including ones that maybe I have written, and it doesn't work on the Apple Silicon. So there are a couple. So the Apple Silicon, because I'm sure some of you have M1s or M2s, or maybe by the time you're watching this, it's the year 2075 and you're on a M3000 computer. But the M1s have a slightly different architecture. They actually went back and used an architecture that it's not new, it's an older technology, but they just upgraded it and nobody else had been messing with it for a while. And so the M1s moved screaming fast, but it kind of caught a lot of people by surprise. And so some of the less popular and less funded projects around here have not updated yet, including things like QEMU, which is a technology that's been around for a while. VirtualBox, some of those other ones that are meant for running multiple operating systems on one operating system. And they don't work quite as well as maybe you would hope for an M1 yet. But again, I develop on an M1. It's not an issue for 99.9% of things, unless you're doing really wonky stuff like trying to run 3 operating systems on one operating system, which you shouldn't be doing. It's just a boneheaded thing to do. I don't know why I was trying to do that. But other than that, you're pretty much just perfectly fine. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and open up VS Code. Let's see. We will talk about some of these commands soon. I'm going to actually just open VS Code the hard way, like this. Ordinarily, so I already have this open, but you'd be able to go to here and find your VS Code wherever that may be. I have no clue where that wound up. Where's VS Code? Oh, there we go. You should be able to click it that way, and that should be just fine. You should get something along these lines. And we're going to pop this open to full screen. Delightful, great. Now, yours might look slightly different than mine. Again, this is not a completely brand new computer. I've already been doing development on this one. This is my work laptop, and I already have my environment pretty well set up. So some of these things will be a little bit different. You won't see the SQL tools or Docker. But you should see something very similar to this. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to this little page thing. Yours might be on the left side, actually. I think it defaults on the left side for most people, but I didn't want that. So we have this thing here, and we're going to open a folder, right? And so one of the things that VS Code does is it kind of like isolates your project, and that way only the files for your project are accessible by your project, right? Because the idea is not that we write code for it to live on our computer forever. Eventually we want to put that out there on the internet, but we don't want the internet to have access to all of our files. That's a horrible idea. And so we have these folders, and these folders contain all the information that we want for our project inside that folder, and then we basically will take that whole folder and put that on the internet, kind of like a copy-paste sort of thing onto the internet. And we'll see this later in especially the software courses, but this means we have to make our own folder and do our own thing. So we're just going to go to Doc, make our own. I have a whole tutorials folder, and I'm going to say Mac installs. You could call it pre-work or intro work or whatever. We do open, and we should see this kind of rearrange a little bit as it realizes, oh, I have a project open. Yay, right? And we see up here Mac installs at the top, and there's nothing in it, right? So what we're going to do, a couple different ways you can do this. One, we could do new file, and that's already more complicated than I want it to be, so we're not going to do it that way. We could also click this new file thing here, or we could just double click either one. So you can either double click, or again, you can click this one. That's all good. And we're going to do hello.py, and we'll have this. Yours at this point may have, and it should have a little pop-up down here saying, do you want to install Python for VS Code? And the answer is yes. If that didn't pop up, what we're going to want to do is go over here to our extensions. Okay, and we're going to find Python, and we're going to spell it right. Python by Microsoft. We want that the swanky one. So it should have about like 60-some million downloads. Apparently, it's only got 4-star review, which is bonkers because it's totally fine. But lots of good stuff here. This is all that we would need. If you're in my web development course, this will all make sense to you soon enough. You'll be able to explain what you just saw there. But that's the whole idea here, right? And so you're going to do install. It should be all good. And once that's installed, you should be able to come back to hello.py. And if you've installed it correctly, you should be able to see this little triangle up here. Is kind of the idea. So you have this run Python file deal. And what we're going to do is we're just going to say print, and even if you don't know what this means yet, we're just going to roll with that, and that's all good. So we've got print hello world, and we're going to click this triangle, and Shazam. There it is, right? Hello world. Cool. Marvelous. Again, if yours looks a little bit different than mine, don't worry about it. I've got some other stuff going on here with linting, and don't worry about that. That's something that I installed especially. But if you are able to write a hello.py file and execute it, and it shows up in the terminal, and you see the hello world print out, you are good to go for both Python and VS Code. So that is fabulous, marvelous, great, wonderful. Cool. All right. Next one. Here we got that. Next one's going to be Anaconda. Anaconda. And so we're just going to do Anaconda and Python. So another thing about Googling stuff, which no matter what course you take from me, you're going to have to learn how to Google things. With Googling things, often I will name the technology that I'm working with, right? So in this case, I'm using Python. And then what my problem is, or what I'm looking for. And then, especially if there's a specific error I'm looking for, I will copy paste the error, and I will mention the language, because sometimes that can be a little bit confusing to Google. And yeah, so that's just some of the things. Okay, so we're gonna go to anaconda.com. Yay, great, cool. And we want the Anaconda distribution. This used to be called Anaconda Independent, but they changed the name, or individual was what they called it, right? But they changed the name to distribution. But anyways, we're going to go to download, and that's all fine. It will say, thank you so much. We are not going to be using Python anywhere. It's kind of a cool thing, but we're already using VS Code, and so we really don't need another IDE, which is just another name for a place where you write code. But now that Anaconda bought Python anywhere, they're pushing it on everybody, and we're going to ignore them. Because VS Code, honestly, is a better tool, and Python Anywhere, I don't know that it necessarily works with things like JavaScript, which we'll probably be using if you're in my web dev course, or C++ or whatever else, right? I suspect it only works with Python, which again, for data is fine, and I don't know what just happened. Where'd it go? Here we go. I don't want you over there. Okay, this package will run a program to see if it can be installed. We're going to allow it. We're going to continue. Sure. Scroll to the bottom. Sure. I agree. It will take up a ton of space on my computer. But again, it's installing an awful lot of stuff. We're going to see what that is in a moment. Should be able to install. I'm curious if it will yell and scream at me and say you've already installed this, or if it'll install it twice. I really hope it doesn't do that. It'd be fine if it just updated it, but we'll see. Yeah, sure. It's already installed. Great. Okay, so it's probably going to say that doesn't count. I don't care. So this is another one, data spell. So this is just another. It's meant for data analysis. So if you're my data analysis course, maybe after the course you spend some time playing around with this, you get better data insights. Maybe, I don't know. I've never used data spell. I just used VS Code. It failed. Great. That's fine for me. It shouldn't have failed for you because you don't have it installed already. So that's all groovy. What we want to check out though now is we're going to click on Anaconda Navigator, and this will open up. There should be a little green circle on your screen. Mine shows up on my other screen, which is much smaller, and I don't like to work on it as much. So that's over here. But it exists, and I'm going to pull that over. I can't move it over yet, but there we go. This should pull up, and this is the Anaconda Navigator. And so a couple things that Anaconda does. Anaconda kind of is meant to take care of a lot of the environment around the projects we're working for, and so it comes with a lot of tools and kind of shortcuts and sort of helper things that come with it. Some of which are really great, some of which I've literally never touched, some of which I don't even know what they do. Yeah, we're not doing data mining in this course, any of my courses. But anyways, we are going to use Jupyter Notebook for all of my courses that use Python. VS Code, do not, please, Do not open VS Code from here. I sound like I'm chewing you off for something you haven't done. Opening VS Code from here is not going to do what you want it to. It's going to be a different VS Code. It's now installed twice on your computer. I would like to remove it, but Conda won't let me because it's part of their core things. But again, we installed it a different way, and we want to use the one that we installed, not this one. So don't click launch here and expect it to do the exact same thing. It's going to be different. Anyways, but Jupyter Notebook is something that we're going to launch pretty regularly in this course. But if you're seeing this, and if you're in my data course, RStudio is also something we're going to be using, but not this version. We'll use a different install. But we'll get there when we get there. So Jupyter Notebook's here. That's all groovy, whatever. But yeah, if you see this thing popped up, you're good to go. And we can just close that. Don't show again. Goodbye. Cool, so that's gone. All right, last thing that we need to install should be Git. And Git should be pretty easy to, you should be able to actually, if you did install Brew, Brew install Git. This should be extremely straightforward. Again, it's going to try and make sure that Brew's not outdated. Bloop, 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 bloop. And it should take about that long. Pretty straightforward. So if you use Git, that's how easy it is to install Git. And now Git works. Git -- version, and huzzah, it works, right? Cool. So we got 2.30.1. Or if you did not put Brew on, that's fine. You don't have to. It's not one of our required installs. I just think it's a cool tool. And most Mac developers use that anyways. But really just look for Git. Bonk. And it's the first one, Git SCM. Very cool. And so we just come over here, download for Mac. So it's actually a newer one. Oh, look at that. Look at that. What did I tell you, right? Again, you don't have to. It's just normal. So that's all fine. Different ways of doing it. You can just do a regular installer. But yeah, so this would probably be the best way to do it. I would recommend using Homebrew, again, because more and more entities are making their own Brew packages for it. So you just do Brew install Git, and you should be able to put it in here. The Windows folks, I think, they're able to just click on, click here to download. Doesn't work for us though, and so you probably want to use the Homebrew one, or you could use the binary installer. Or build from source, but that requires thinking. That requires work, and so yeah, let's not do that one. Let's just use Homebrew, and that should be all groovy. So once again, Python, Homebrew, VS Code, Anaconda, and Git. Once you have all of those, you should be good to go and ready to cruise onward. Next video will be how to use the CLI. So a lot of the stuff that I was doing here, explaining some things that way. And it should be pretty cool, but you should have everything you need to do the course. I may use a couple of other things that will kind of install along the way, depending on what course you're in, but these are the things that every course that I teach is going to have, basically. And that should be pretty cool. So anyways, I hope this was all good. If you need help, reach out to your course staff member. If things didn't work the way they were, or if you went to the same URLs that I did and they weren't quite right, or they looked different, you couldn't find what you were looking for, again, you should have a staff member for your course that you can reach out to, and they will help you out. So, other than that, that's pretty much the video. Stay rad, and I'll see you later.